educational focus prevailing during the particular period or event in the Philippine history. This focus be made basis or model of curriculum development of recent years. So kung ano man yung kung ano man po yung estado ng educational system natin today, it is influenced by psychologically and philosophical foundation and sa lipunan na meron ang Philippines. And of course, no, the society that we have right now is also derived from the events of the history. No? Now, isa-isahin natin yung per eras na to kasi baka lumabas din. What are the different eras of the education in the Philippines? We have pre-colonial, Spanish era, American, Japanese, the Republic in 1945 to 1972, 1972 to 1986, also known as the martial law, 1986 to 2000, and 21st century education in the Philippines. Okay? Now, era and description. So sa era pre-colonial, okay, so pre-colonial meaning prior to the arrival of the Spaniards. The goal is integration of individuals into the tribe. The focus is customs and tradition. Method is oral immersion and experience. Course of study, none kasi non-formal. General characteristics, non-formal. And community-based. Okay. Now, linawin ko lang po, I want to debunk the statements that were given by these Spanish colonizers that Filipinos are ignoramus or the native peoples in our nation before are ignoramos ignorante in fact we have our own social structure before, we have a good form social structure before, and we also have a educational structure before. Now, pero kasi, again, Philippines is not a political empire. We are social units. No, we have different social units that are led by different leaders. No, there are three founding figures in sinaunang lipunan ng Pilipinas. Nandyan ang Lakan Datuol Sultan ang nangunguna sa namumuno sa bayan, no? And the role is of course to lead and to protect the people. The second one is the tekne, the panday, yung mga panday, sila yung tumutulong sa kung ano man yung livelihood na meron doon. The third one is the babaylan or katalonans, the healers, no? Now, they're also the teachers. Now, ang approach ng educational system in the pre-colonial era is they teach what is needed. They teach what is needed and what is the trend or what is needed in their community. So halimbawa sa isang community na malapit sa dagat, ano yung mga tinuturo sa kanila? Skills ng pangingisda. Okay, this is experience-based. Kapag naman nasa bulubundukin, ang tinuturo naman sa kanila is farming or hunting. So this is still an education structure that we have in the pre-colonial era. Okay? Now, during the Spanish era, they say that they brought education. Although the University of Santo Tomas was established in 1611, ang mga pwede lang naman mag-aral doon ay mga Espanyol na praile lang din. Okay? So education was not given to us by the Spaniards. In fact, for 300 years, they've taken education away from us. Malaki ang kinuha sa atin ng mga Espanyol. Hindi nila tayo binigyan ng pagkakataong makapag-aral because they destroyed the community eh. Sinira nila yung lipunan na meron tayo before. They burned all the writings or records of babaylans, killed the babaylans because babaylans are the teachers, no? But yes, no. Although the intention again is goal of the Spanish era was to spread Christianity, the focus is religion, cathetical, corporal, rote memorization, course of study not prescribed, general characteristics, again, no grade level, and church-based. Kasi nga, hindi naman talaga tayo binigyan nila ng edukasyon. Kailan lang ba na-offer ang educations sa Philippines, no? The normal school for boys and girls, the school open for boys and girls. It was only opened in 1868. No, 1868 lang po binigay yung education. Now, pansinin niyo, 1868, 20 years or 25 years later, ano pong nangyari? Sige nga po kung if you have an idea. Anyone? Chat section po. Chat na lang kung meron nun po. Again, binigyan lang po ng pagkakataong makapag-aral ang mga Pilipino noong 1868. Okay? Sinakop nila tayo ng matagal na panahon. Nagtatag sila ng mga paaralan, no? Pero hindi tayo nakapag-aral. They only offered education to Filipinos in 1868. 20 years later, ano pong nangyari? 20 to 25 years later. Anyone? Hello? Nagkaroon po ng teachers. I need your participation with this one. Come on. Okay. Nagkaroon ng revolusyon ng kamulatan. Okay. Now, thank you po, no? Thank you, Santos, Duena, and Castro for answering. Yes po. No? Kung pansinin ninyo, in 1868, binigyan ng pagkakataon ng access to education ng mga Filipinos. Anong nangyari? Doon sa mga nakapag-aral, nagkaroon ng kamulatan. Pagpunta nila sa Estados Unidos, pagpunta nila sa Europa, bakit ganito yung lipunang ginagalawan ko? Pagbalik nila sa Pilipinas, of course, nagkaroon ng kamulatan, definitely led to revolution. So this simply proves that education is liberating. Mapagpalaya po ang edukasyon. Naniniwala po ba tayo doon? Mapagpalaya ang edukasyon. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, after the Spanish era of education, so nabigyan tayo ng access ng 1868 ng education, no? But hindi na, although hindi tayo nakalaya talaga because of the revolution, no? Pero nagkaroon tayo ng tayo ay nasakop, no, ng mga Amerikano naman. So tumunod sa Spanish era is the American era. So the American era, their goal is democracy. The focus is language and literature. The method is democratic. The course is prescribed, uniformed, and centralized. And the general characters are formal, structured, existence of educational system. So pagpasok ng mga ng mga Americans dito sa Philippines, nagkaroon na ng structure of education. In fact, madaming academic institutions ang naitatag noong panahon ng mga Amerikano. Ano-ano kaya itong mga to? If you're familiar. So in 1901, the Philippine Normal University was established to focus on teaching. It was known first as Philippine Normal School. 1901 din po tinatag ang Manila ang Technological University of the Philippines, also known as the Manila Trade School. 1904, tinatag ang Polytechnic University of the Philippines, which is commerce, I think. Business, it was a business school. 1908, tinatag ang University of the Philippines. Sa Manila pa po iyon, bago yung ilipat sa Diliman, yung main campus nila. So what I'm trying to say is education became very available during the time of the Americans. Okay? Next po is the Japanese era. In 1939 po, nung nagkaroon ng 1935 to 1945, nabigyan tayo ng pagkakataon na magkaroon ng Commonwealth Constitution, no, for 10 years transition from the Americans to the Filipinos. But in 1939, nagkaroon ng gera. Definitely, nasakop din ng Pilipinas ng mga Japanese. So the goal is spread of new Asian order because they believe that Asia is for Asians. The focus is principles of new order. The method is routine memorization and threat conditioning. The course is vocational. They are, Japanese education system is focused on skills development. Kaya kung papansinin ninyo, ang trend sa Japan is really skills development. And general characteristics is repressive anti-West, military existence of educational system. So when they arrived here, the focus of education was about vocational, and they do not want Western forms of knowledge. Now, after the World War II in 1945 to 1972, dito na bumabangon na yung Pilipinas, no? The aim of education that time was full realization of democratic ideals, promotion of equal education for all, the EFA. The content is conservation of Filipino heritage, training for occupation, democratic nation building, and new thrust one community development. That was the focus of the education system that time. So there were many presidents na din na nakaupo. In 1965, umupo si Ferdinand Marcos Sr. But in 1972, he declared martial law. And the educational system also changed when the martial law was declared in 1972. The aim is national development. The content is foster love of country, teach duties of citizens, develop moral character, self-discipline, and scientific technology and tech work efficiency. Now, in the previous era in 1946 to 1972, unti-unti naging progressive ang mga Filipinos, to ang bilis ng progress natin. Now, during this time naman, tandaan natin na meron tayong tatlong klase ng economy. No? Predominantly, we have agricultural, service, and industrial. Ngayon, no, during this era, we attempted to transition from agricultural to industrial. Bakit? During this time kasi, the world leading countries are already transitioning to industrialized countries kasi we have the United States, we have Europe, these are industrialized countries. So ginusto din ni Philippines na maging industrialized. Nag-prepare siya ng mga tao na maging professionals, doctors, engineers, no, and other people that are needed in the industry. But because of the event, no, that happened, definitely nagkaroon din ng brain drain during this era. A lot of professionals decided to leave. Why? Because although the government wanted to offer good education for them, unfortunately, there is no job prepared for them here in the Philippines. So, nangyari, they had to go abroad. Okay? So, nagkaroon ng brain drain. Now, after that era, in 1986 to 2000, no, ang aim is national development and values education, papasok na din po yung creation ng or trifocalization ng tatlong education agencies. We have TESDA, DepEd, and SHED. Pumasok na din dyan yung Teacher Education Council and Center of Excellence and TechVoc Education Program. Bakit lumakas ang TechVoc Educational Program? Now, when Filipinos went outside during the previous era, nalaman ng mga foreigner, ang gagaling pala magtrabaho ng mga Pilipino, buhat bangkon, ang gagaling pala magtrabaho ng mga Pilipino. Now, nagkaroon ng increase of demand ng mga Filipino workers. So, ano nangyari sa Philippines? No? From agricultural country, we attempted to transition to industrialized country. Instead, we did not become industrialized country. Anong nangyari sa atin? We became a service country. Naging service country tayo ng mga nurses, ng mga doctors, ng mga technicians and engineers all over the world. Okay? Nakakasabay po ba? Hello po.
Opo.
So that's the story, no? Why bakit dumami yung OFW sa mga Filipinos? Okay. Now, na-highlight dito yung TechVoc Educational Program at nagkaroon ng trifocalization yung TESDA, DepEd, and SHED. So we have Department of Education and SHED. Now, in the 21st century education, nandito tayo ngayon, no? Ang dami na agad nangyari, no? Unang 2 dekada pa lang ng century. Now, the K-12 program is an educational system under the Department of Education that aims to enhance learning basic skills and produce more competent citizens and preparing graduates for lifelong learning and employment. At present, Philippines is the last country in the ASEAN region to have the K-12 curriculum as mandated in RA 10533. So, ang RA 10533 talks about enhanced basic education curriculum. Pero yeah, it's very din sa atin, no. We just transition to K-12 program noong 2012, tapos noong 2013 yung ibang bansa nag K-14 naman. So parang nahuhuli talaga tayo, no. But take note, hindi naman talaga yan sa length of education eh. It's about the quality and content. No? Until ngayon, the Philippines is still transitioning, still adapting with the program, especially kung nagkaroon tayo ng pandemic. Now, the K-12 curriculum The K-12 curriculum have the curriculum guide. So may tinatawag tayo na CG. Bawat subject po ay merong curriculum guide provided by the Department of Education. This is a lesson development plan provided to all basic education institutions with corresponding subjects and courses. So K to 12 stands for kinder, and then yung 12 yung 12 academic years, 6 years sa primary ed, 4 years sa juniors sa as junior high, and then 2 years sa senior high. Pagdating mo sa senior high, meron tayong tinatawag na academic, may tinatawag tayo na track. So we have academic track. Nandyan papasok si GAS, STEM, ABM, and HUMS. Nandyan si sports, si arts and design, and TVL. Okay? So each subject has its own structure, has its own framework. So if you're going to teach in high school, or if you are practice teaching right now, titingnan ninyo yung structure or framework ng education ng subject ninyo para mas malaman mo kung ano yung highlight na gustong makuha, na gusto mong ma-attain, na gusto mong ma-attain ng mga students mo at the end of the course. Okay? So very available naman po yan. So again, there are 4 major foundations of the curriculum. We have the psychological foundation, which is heavily rooted no on the learners. So tatandaan nyo lang po yung 3 major theories of learning. Ano-ano po yung 3 majors of learning that is relevant to curriculum based on our discussion? We have, hello po, behaviorism, we have
Cognitive.
and last is phenomenology or humanistic. Okay, thank you. Next one is philosophical foundation. There are 2 major views of philosophical foundation. Ano po yung dalawang iyon? We have the traditional and progressive view of education. We also talked about the 5 focuses, and we also talked about several isms of education and its relation to curriculum. Okay? We also talk about socio-cultural foundation, which is quite quick because ano naman talaga ang socio-cultural foundation, nagva-vary yan no in every society. And of course, the historical foundation. The historical foundation talks about the history of the Philippines, and the education system that we have right now is a product no of the history. So kung anumang educational system na meron tayo ngayon dito sa Pilipinas, ito ay produkto ng estado ng ating lipunan, socio-cultural, ating kasaysayan, history, and of course, the psychology and philosophical foundation. Nakakasabay po ba? Malinaw po ba iyon?
Yes
We have
po.
any questions so far? Wala naman. Okay, let's proceed to the next one. The next one is fundamental concepts of curriculum. The fundamental concepts of curriculum. Okay, so first we're going to talk about levels of curriculum. Okay, meron pong 4 na levels of curriculum. So we have the societal level of curriculum, institutional level of curriculum, instructional level of curriculum, and experiential level of curriculum. Itong 4 na level of curriculums na to, naka-level yan in order to reach the client or reach the customer. Sino ba ang customer natin sa education system? These are the students. The students are our clients. The students are the center of education. So, from society, papunta sa ating learners. Okay, so let's start. So we have the learner here, no? And then each levels, okay, kailangan madaanan yan bago makarating sa learner. So the first one, the first level of curriculum is the societal level of curriculum. This is in relation to public stakeholders. Nandyan yung politics, organizations and agencies like kung sino yung uupong president kasi siya yung mag-a-appoint ng uupong Department of Education or mag-a-appoint ng commissioner ng Commission on Higher Education. No? This will highly affect the education system that we have, the agencies, also other NGOs, non-government offices or non-government agencies that helps foster education. And of course, papasok din dito si historical and socio-cultural foundation. Okay? So may demand si society, kailangan maiparating natin ito sa mga students. The next level is institutional level. So meron si society, after ni society mag-demand, ipapasok yan ngayon sa institutional level. Kung sino man yung umupong Department of Education, gagawa yan ng mandate, no, to implement to the institutional level. This could be implemented to the school system per se, the schools, individual schools, universities, driven from philosophy, history, and cultural. Bakit may philosophical foundation? Kasi kung ano yung filosofiya ng paaralan. Again, each school has its own philosophies na hindi mo pwedeng baliin kasi long-standing na yung philosophies na yon. The third one is instructional level of curriculum. So the instructional level of curriculum, teachers use the curriculum. So strategies, styles, and approaches of philosophy and psychology. So tingnan natin ha. Societal level, let's cite an example. May mga subjects tayo ngayon na hindi naman offered before, na offered ngayon. Okay? This is because it is the demand of the society. So halimbawa, let's talk about the environmental science elective subject or environmental science subject. Yung environmental science subject na yon, wala naman yun sa curriculum before, di ba? It was from the society. Bakit? Because of the issues of prevailing environmental problems, the education system decided to craft a curriculum up for it. And then in the institutional level, no, may kanya-kanya tayong syllabus or kanya-kanya tayong syllabus na nabigay sa atin, no? Okay? Or let's say we follow the CMO. Now, sa instructional level, ang may control na ngayon dyan, si teacher. Si teacher na ang may hawak nung role na mag-deliver ng content, mag-deliver ng expected outcome, mag-deliver ng target objectives. Now, my question is, bakit kailangan pang nitong experiential level? Bakit kailangan pa nitong pang-apat? Kung pwede naman na after magturo ni teacher, reach na dapat yun kay learner. Do you get my point? Now, we have societal, institutional, and instructional level. So naturo na ni teacher eh. Nagturo na si teacher. Now, bakit kailangan pa nung pang-apat na level, the experiential level? Teachers. Because, okay, natandaan po ito ha. Natandaan po ito. The experiential level bridges the content to the learners. Very good, no? This is an accepted answer. Application. The experiential level of curriculum is perceived and experienced by learners. May vary because of the individual experiences. So as a teacher, no, example, although your content is relevant, pero yung mga examples mo naman, hindi na experience ng bata. Remember, no, that in developing your content or crafting the flow of your content in line with your target objective, dapat, no, i-align mo din ito sa experiences ng mga bata. Alangan naman magbigay ka ng example ng snow nang hindi naman hindi naman lahat ng estudyante mo ay nakaranas ng snow. Also, no, experience deepens content. Mas maa-appreciate ng bata yung content because he or she experiences it. It's a knowledge relevant. Kasi baka tanungin ka ng bata, aanhin ko yan, hindi ko naman kailangan mag-compute ng X and Y kapag bumili ako ng suka. Maaring, di ba? This is isang pilosopong tanong na tinatanong, ako I teach chemistry, no, but thankfully hindi pa ako natatanong na aanhin namin yung pagbabalance ng chemical reaction sa pagbili ng dapat namin bilhin sa groceries. So dapat, no, ang experiences na ang content mo, in order to bridge it with your learners, kailangan ng experiential level. In order to have what? In order to have a meaningful learning. Take note ha, meaningful learning. Because learning may happen. but meaningful learning will stay at the long-term memory. Kasi yun yung maaalala ng bata. Nagkakaunawaan ho ba tayo, teachers? Is that clear?
Yes po.
Now, again, the levels of curriculum, we have the societal level of curriculum, institutional level of curriculum, instructional level of curriculum, and experiential level of curriculum. Now, as I was saying kanina, no, the good curriculum is responsive to the needs of the society and vice versa. Madaming subjects na meron ngayon na wala yung mga dati. At madami din subjects before na meron na wala naman sa atin ngayon. Why? Because it's the demand of the society. Let me cite you an example na wala naman before. BSIT. Wala namang BSIT before. But because of the trend of information technology, because of the trend of electronics, nagkaroon ng BSIT. Another thing, we have, ngayon magugulat ka, no? May subject na dati, alam mo, picture-picture lang. Ngayon may subject na photography, kanta ni Taylor Swift, there's a course offered in NYU about writing structure of the songs of Taylor Swift. No, so anyway, what I'm trying to say is yung mga subjects natin nagbabago. But take note, there is no perfect curriculum. No, only appropriate ones responsive to the society. Kaya kung maririnig ninyo yung mga magulang ninyo na sinasabing nila, kami nga dati. Well, it doesn't mean na mas mahirap yung curriculum nila or mas mahirap yung curriculum ninyo. It's just that their curriculum is appropriate during their time and your curriculum is appropriate during this time because this is on the basis of the demand of the society. So kapag sinabi ng magulang yun na kami nga dati ganito, ganyan, naiintindihan naman natin yon. Nasabi nila na kami kailangan pa namin pumuntang library, no, para maghanap ng information. Kayo naman, no, click of the finger lang yung information para makuha ninyo. Pero ang problem nyo naman ay paano nyo malalaman kung alin doon yung totoong information sa lahat ng information na meron kayo. Okay? So, ayun lang po. So, the levels of curriculum, again, we want to penetrate, we want to reach the learner. So, alin sa apat na levels of curriculum ang magbibigay ng meaningful learning? All of that can provide learning. The societal, institutional, and instructional level can give learning. But the experiential level of curriculum can give meaningful learning. Kaya ka nagbibigay ng mga examples, kaya ka nagbibigay ng mga activities na related sa inyong mga estudyante to make it meaningful. Question so far? May tanong po? Hello? Do we have questions? None. Okay. Let's proceed. Again, these are the levels of curriculum, societal, institutional, experiential, and for us to reach the learners. Okay. Let's talk about types and patterns of curriculum. Now, meron tayong iba't ibang types at bawat type ng curriculum ay merong patterns or merong designs. Okay? Huwag po kayo malilito. Yung pattern po is somehow the designs in other textbooks. Now, what are the different types and patterns of curriculum? The types and patterns of curriculum, the first one is subject-centered. The second one is learner-centered. The third one is problem-centered curriculum. The subject-centered curriculum, the designs are most popular and widely used in many curriculum designs. Knowledge and content ang kanyang focus, and teacher has the full control of the curriculum. Okay. So, in each, again, subject-centered curriculum is a type of curriculum. Under niyan, merong iba't ibang patterns or tinatawag din nating designs. Isa-isahin natin yung mga subject-centered curriculum. The first one is separate subject design. Ang separate subject design, this is when a subject compartmentalizes its subject. Na science lang ako ito yung magaling na subject, ito yung mahirap na subject. Math lang, no? Before compartmentalized ang view natin sa education because of the traditional view of education. Again, it's as indicated, no, the strength is it's the oldest known curriculum. So discipline based lang ito, based on the concept of knowledge, organized by specialized discipline, discipline-based lang ito. Mataas ang deepening of content. Verbal activities is evident, and teacher has an active role. Okay, why? Because teachers, again, in this form, as mentioned, all this form of curriculum, teachers becomes the sole source of knowledge. But take note again, we are no longer sole source of knowledge. We are facilitators of knowledge. Okay, active role ito kasi somehow it is a teacher-centered curriculum. But this still varies. Depende pa rin yan. Paano natin i-view. Limitation is isolation, isolates and compartmentalizes knowledge, meaning since you specialize in this field, hanggang dito ka na lang, you compartmentalize the field and appropriate for large number of students because the focus is not the focus for the students is not that of importance. Too technical and specialized, focus on content and neglect students' needs. So ayun lang, focus siya sa content, no? Hindi na sa kung ano yung kailangan ng bata. Okay, so this is separate subject design. Okay? The next one is correlated subject design. So when we talk about correlation, this talks about two subjects that can be that can collaborate, no? That can collaborate. So example, strength is an attempt to eliminate and the isolation and compartmentalization of the subjects without radically overhauling the subject design. Interdisciplinary link while keeping identities. And limitations is will require teachers to prepare their lessons heavily. Most schedules do not allow sufficient block of time for students to meaningfully study correlated subjects. Okay, let me ask you a question. Isip tayo ng subject na pwede nating i-correlate. Ano yung mga subjects na pwede magkaroon ng correlation? In a way na pwede mag-usap yung dalawang teacher tapos isa lang yung activity nila, o kaya naman yung offering ng subjects per year level na mapapansin ninyo sabay ino-offer yung mga subjects na to na parang may siya, may correlation yung mga subjects nito. Ano ba yung mga subjects na may correlation? Very good, no? Mathematics and science, they are both correlational subjects because math is the language of science. Pero syempre hindi papayag ang math majors na hindi lang kami language ng science. No? We are a separate field of knowledge. Also Filipino and AP. Very good on values in all subjects. Ang values po ay values integration. Kailangan ma-integrate mo yung values per subject ngayon as demanded by the K-12. AP and science could also be one, early childhood and science, no? Also history, okay, history and literature. Kung papansinin niyo, ino-offer yung subject na yung topic sa I'm not sure before in our previous curriculum, I'm not sure with the structure of curriculum ng English ngayon. When we were second year, we were talking about Afro-Asian literature. Pero, and at the same time, when yung history subject namin, we're talking about Afro-Asian history. So, maybe you noticed that. Yeah. Okay. So, that's the correlated subject design. So, yan yung mga pagkakataon na pwedeng mag-usap yung mga teachers, isang output na lang, pero dalawang mag-evaluate. Okay? The next is broad field subject design. So broad field subject design, integration of knowledge and more comprehensive models of knowledge. So correlation, dalawang subject lang. Sa broad field, tatlo. Pwedeng tatlo or apat kung ilang subject man yan. Solves the boundaries to make meaningful knowledge. Knowledge is not linear or fragmented, but multidisciplinary and multidimensional. So if correlated design is interdisciplinary, broad field design is multidisciplinary. The limitation is issue of breadth and depth. Why? Hindi na ganun kalalim yung content because of the broad field approach. No? Sige, isip tayo ng subject na madaming ino-offer na fields of knowledge. Sige, ako na mauuna, MAPE. Why? MAPE is a broad field knowledge because it has 4 different subjects. We have music, arts, physical education, and health. Science is also one. Science is a broad field discipline. Okay. Now, bukod doon, may mga subject din tayo na papansin natin nung 4th year. Okay, ano yung mga pwede nating gawing broad field? Pwede mong gawing broad field. Halimbawa, 4th year students sa junior high school, no, or grade 10, pwede na ang English teacher nila is formal writing. Ang kanilang topic is economics naman, and ang AP nila is focus on economics, and may entrepreneurship sila sa TLE nila. So ano yung pwede nilang gawing output na isang output lang tapos 3 teacher na yung magche-check? Si English formal writing, si economics, and then si TLE. Anong output sa tingin ninyo yung pwedeng pag-usapan ng mga teacher na isang output lang yung gagawin ng bata, pero 3 na silang mag-check para hindi na mahirapan yung bata? Anyone? Research paper could be good. However, saan papasok dyan yung TLE? Business plan. Di ba nagpapagawa ng business plan yung mga TLE teachers? It would be better if the business plan could also be correlated with the economics, no, para ma-address yung demand and supply, no, discussion on economic demand, and of course si English teacher ang mag-check nung formal writing. Okay? So that's the broad field subject design. Okay? This is the subject-centered curriculum. Dako naman tayo sa learner-centered curriculum. Sa learner-centered curriculum, so the students are the center or the focus of the program. These designs are found more frequently at the elementary school levels where teachers tends to stress the development of a child. So, student-centered, the first one is student-centered design. Students are actively involved in the environment. So custom-made ito. Children would attain self-realization through social participation and emphasis on childs rather than the subject matter. Okay? Kung kanina sa subject matter, they disregard yung students because of subject matter. Dito naman, mas importante ang child, ang needs ng child rather than the subject matter. Kaya nga mas evident ito sa lower grade, sa lower years. Although we have demands for them. But take note, no, developmental dapat ang demand natin. Huwag tayo magde-demand na kayang computein ng isang bata, ang isang bata yung isang napakahabang computations, no? Unless genius talaga yung bata. Teachers, ang approach natin sa mga students sa pagtuturo dapat average ha. Kasi kapag ang approach mo ay for performing students, hindi makakahabol yung mga struggling students. Kaya dapat ang approach mo for average para madali mong ma-address yung performing students and struggling students. Huwag ka lang magfo-focus sa struggling students and performing students lang. Dapat both. Okay, mahirap yun gawin. Sobrang hirap yun gawin. Kasi yung isang estudyante, gusto nang lumipat ng kabilang lesson, yung isang estudyante, hindi pa siya nakakasabay. Paano mo ngayon i-address yan? Okay. The next one is experience-centered design. So, simultaneous naman ito. Heavy emphasis on learners' interests and felt needs. Curriculum would be ever-changing in addressing the needs. So, nagbabago ang experience-centered design depending on sa experiences ng mga bata, no? Experiences ng mga bata. Because kapag nalaman mo kung anong experiences nila, doon mo lang maa-address kung ano yung mga needs ng mga bata. The third type of curriculum is problem-centered curriculum. Now, The problem-centered curriculum are organized to reinforce cultural traditions and also address those community and social needs that are currently unmet. The major concern is with genuine life problems and the needs to adjust or cater the concerns of situations of learners. Same lang, yung dalawa kong share is same lang, the life situation design and the core design, both focusing on problem-centered curriculum. So this is the time when teachers give you a problem and then you have to solve it. Not only problem solving, situational problems. Kasi pwede mo tong gamitin sa paggawa mo ng research. So, life situation design, problem solving procedures for learners. Problem solving, okay. Problem solving procedure for learners. If you are, example sa mga bata, no, so example, problem, it's a math problem. I gave you 20 pesos, you went to the store and bought a biscuit that cost 6 pesos. How much is your change? O, magkano yung sukle? Okay? Ganun yung approach mo ng tanong instead of 20 minus 6. So, 20 minus 6 is a mathematical question that's a subject-centered approach. But if it is life situation approach, i-word mo yon, ilalagay mo sa sitwasyon. I gave you 20 pesos, you went to the store to buy a 6 peso worth candy, 6 peso worth biscuit, how much is your change? Okay? So that's an example of life situation design. Very common ito sa math and math, physics, and chemistry. Content is organized to view problems. So of course, nandun pa rin yung content. Nilalagay mo lang siya sa life situations, utilizes past and current experiences as means of making analysis, linking subject matter to real situation to increase relevance of meaningful learning. Dito papasok ngayon yung experiential level. Kailangan mo kasing ma-associate talaga yan sa nararanasan nila para makita nila yung meaningful learning. Okay? The next one, limitations ito, ability to determine the scope and sequence of the essential areas of living, trends to indoctrinate youth into existing condition. Okay. Core design is social functions. Okay, dito papasok, this is a problem-centered curriculum but more on research naman ang approach nito because you are going to use your content to address several social problems or scientific problems. So, ang focus nito again, general education, unifies content, present subject matter relevant to the learners, and encourage active processing of information. Okay. So, ang variations of core design, subject matter core would be classified as subject-centered, areas of living rooted in progressive education tradition. Okay, so we have the different types and patterns of curriculum. The first type is the subject-centered curriculum. Ano yung mga patterns na nasa kanya? We have the separate, correlated, and broad field. The learner-centered curriculum, we have child and experience. The problem-centered curriculum, life situation, and core design. Okay. So, do we have any questions before we transition? We have a question here. Sir, how about problem questions on ESP, values education part? Po ba yun? Values education, part po ba yun ng problem solving? Okay. Yes po. But it is more on core design. Core design po. Kasi ano po yun about social issues Social role po kasi ang values, di ba? Kung ano yung role mo as a human being. So it's a core design. It's a higher, I'm not saying kasi life situation design is may mga overlapping yan May mga overlapping yan. If your question is related on life situation decision making on values, then it could be life situation / core design. Kasi majorly values is a core design subject if yun yung type ng curriculum. Did I answer your question? Ano? More, what do you mean more on critical? Uh, halimbawa, is it a life situation na about ethics, ganon? Yeah. Oh, okay. If it's a life situation about ethics, ano core design po 'yun? Kasi social function po 'yun eh. Core design ang ano. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, question so far? Or do you want to have a, is it okay to I'll give you a 5-minute break para makapagpahinga din ako before we transfer to the third one, or 3 minutes break lang muna. It's already 8:22. Resume tayo ng 8:25 before we start with uh, components.
Sunday po.
Okay. Let's take a 3-minute break. Thank you po. Before we proceed with components of curriculum design.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, good morning everyone. Let's proceed na po, if that's okay. Kindly type 1 at the chat section if you guys are ready to proceed. Medyo mahaba-haba pa po kasi talaga ito. I encourage you guys to please take note, no? Muscle memory writing, it works. It really works, no? In your preparation to have content, no? Okay, so the third part that we're going to talk about is components of curriculum design. So the key components are, components talks about identify educational philosophy. The first is you have to identify the education philosophy. Why? Because it mirrors it is the mirror of the national philosophies. In a certain, as I have mentioned kanina, no, ang mga kaganapan sa lipunan ay makakaapekto talaga sa educational system. So, the philosophy of an education system is largely influenced by the national philosophies. Well, the Philippines is democratic, no? So somehow the approach on our education system is democratic. Sociocultural needs of the people or the students, decision making of adding, deleting, and making new courses. As I have mentioned kanina, no, may mga subjects na hindi na offered ngayon na offered before. May mga courses na offered ngayon na hindi na offered before na hindi na offered ngayon because of the changing demand of the society. May mga subjects na tinanggal, may mga subjects na dinagdag or yun no, okay. So this is still on the basis of the philosophy of the society. How does one decide on curriculum development? So again, the decision on curriculum development ay hindi madali. Okay, kasi kailangan mo makita i-retroscope kung ano nga ba yung hinihingi ng lipunan. What are the components of curriculum? So the components of curriculum are these four. So we have aims, goals, and objectives, content and subject matter, learning experience, and educational environment. So let's start with aims. So i-differentiate kasi i-differentiate natin itong aims, goals, and objectives. Start with aims. So aims is analysis of needs and tasks, determines students' needs to succeed in school, appropriate content, sequence, instructional strategies, and various curricular components. When we talk about aims, this talks about in a timeline, no, in a time frame, mas mahaba ang aim. Kasi aim can be attained after the program. Sabihin natin we have an aim for the K-12 program, magiging successful, masasabi lang natin na attain yung aim for the program after the full implementation or several years after the full implementation. Kailan ba nagkaroon ng full implementation ng K-12 program? Kailan nagkaroon ng full implementation ng RA 10533? It was implemented in 2012. The paper was followed in 2013, but its full implementation ay kung anong taon gumraduate ang first batch of K-12 students. Anong taon ba gumraduate ang first batch of grade 12 students? Some of you are K-12, right? If I'm not mistaken, graduating kayo eh.
2018.
2018. So the first batch of K-12 students is 2018. That's the full implementation. Pero na-attain na ba agad natin yung aim for the K-12 students? No. Because the attainment of the program, the attainment for the K-12 students, no, is progressive. Progressive ito. Okay? Okay. So, generating aims, again, as mentioned, no, long-term direction for students. Ano nga ba yung gusto mo para sa mga estudyante in a long-term view? System level of development, because in each level, year level, dapat may na-attain ka progressively doon sa aim na sinet mo for the program. So we have rules in generating aims. We have not rules, we have guidelines. Let's say the 1987 Constitution states that all schools shall aim to what? First, inculcate patriotism and nationalism. Kaya hindi pwedeng mawala ang lupang hinirang, no, sa araw-araw na pagpasok ng face to face, no, sa government offices. Every Monday, 'di ba? Every Monday nagkakaroon ng flag ceremony sa mga schools, no? So we have to inculcate patriotism and nationalism, foster love of humanity, promote respect to human rights, appreciate the role of national heroes in historical development of the country. That is also why we talk about the history of our heroes, and of course, may ano tayo, may elective subject may general education subject tayo in uh, college, no, sa university na about the life and works of Rizal. Although wala naman talaga official na papel na dinedeklara na si Rizal ang ating pambansang bayani, pero gayon pa man, no, kinikilala natin siya bilang pambansang bayani. Okay? And of course, teach the right and duties of a citizen. So citizenship It's very important, mga karapatan at responsibilidad. Lagi nating tatandaan sa bawat karapatan na may kaakibat o kakambal itong responsibilidad. Bilang mamamayan ng Pilipinas, no, may gampanin tayo. Bukas gagampanan natin ang isa sa mga mahalagang gampanin natin kasi nasa atin ang kapangyarihan bukas kung sino nga ba ang susunod na mga mamumuno sa ating bansa. Okay. Next is strengthen ethical and spiritual values. Philippines as a known Christian country, but Philippines is already starting to, although we recognize ourselves as a Christian country, but Philippines is a melting pot of different beliefs. Different beliefs now. We are fostering spiritual values, develop moral character and personal discipline, encourage critical and creative thinking. This is more close to your content. Broaden scientific and technological knowledge and promote vocational efficiency and promote vocational efficiency. So these are the ito yung mga dapat na makitang elements ng aims na na-develop ng inyong university or ng inyong school for you. Okay? Hindi agad yan na-attain. Na-attain agad ba itong mga ito in just one lesson, in just two lessons, in just 2 years? 1 year, 2 years? Kaya nyo bang ma-attain to agad? No. Okay. Hindi po ito na-attain agad. Now, according to Randall Dahl, there are different facets also wherein you can develop your aim. So first, we have intellectual, socio-personal, and productive. So ang intellectual aim focus on what? Acquisition and comprehension of knowledge, problem solving, and methods of thinking. Ang focus ng aim na yan is content. Lagi nating tandaan, hindi natin pwedeng tanggalin si content Kasi yun naman talaga yung purpose of education Although we know that teaching is by heart, but let's recognize that we have an academic standard to follow. Okay? So, ang focus niyan is intellectual aim is the content. The second one is the socio-personal or the affective, are concerned in the ways in which people are related to other individuals and society and how individuals view themselves. These aims address individual psychology and how people fit into their families and communities. Okay, and then the third one is productive aim. The productive aim is focused on the functioning citizen in the future. Kaya nga 'di ba, at the end of the program, it is expected na may role ka na gagampanan bilang teacher, bilang engineer, definitely sa syllabus ninyo. Okay? So it talks about the functioning aim. The functioning aim. Ano yung pwede mong gawin for the society. Okay? So this is the aim. The first aim is cognitive level according to Ronald Dahl. The second one is effective on how you can help other people, how you can connect with other people. And the third one is what can you give as a citizen. Citizenship roles ito. Okay? In addition to that, we also have Ornstein and Hankins. Ornstein and Hankins also offered different aims naman in a different facets. We have the physical aim. The physical aim naman dealing with development and maintenance of strong and healthy bodies. Holistic ito, kasama na yung katawan natin, the physical form, Kaya yung physical education, hindi talaga natin yan pwedeng alisin. Kahit yung iba sa inyo ay tamad na tamad mag-jogging, tamad na tamad but it has to be inculcated. Okay, because physical activity or physical fitness also influences cognition. Aesthetics, dealing with values and appreciation of the arts. Moral is dealing with values and appropriate conduct. Spiritual, dealing with transcendence of self. This is more evident in sectarian institutions, either a Christian school, Catholic school, whatsoever. Okay? So naka-inculcate yan sa kanila. Okay? So branding din kasi yan eh, branding din yan. Yung graduates ng program namin or graduates ng university namin, ito yung nagiging brand nila. Okay. So, what is the relationship between aims, goals, and objectives? So, formulation, formative evaluation muna. Then you create the aims. The aims will be reflected in the goals. The goals will be reflected in the objectives and the summative evaluation. So, hindi ka pwedeng mag-create ng goals nang hindi naka-align sa aims ninyo. At the same time, hindi ka din pwede mag-create ng goals, ng objectives na hindi naman naka-align sa goals ninyo. Kasi dapat align yan. In every objective na na-attain per lesson, dapat na-attain din yung goal for the specific program or for the specific subject. And every time na natatapos ng bata yung subject o yung program, na-attain din yung aims progressively. Okay. Let's go to goals. Mabilis lang tong goals kasi goals is what destination you have in mind for learners as far as particular curriculum or subject is concerned. Goals is more observed in what? It's more observed in your syllabus kasi per subject ito or per quarter. Per subject, per quarter, or per academic year, may goal kayo. 'Di ba? Depende yun sa structure ng programs ninyo. So, goals are more specific than aims. Kasi kung papansinin nyo kanina yung mga sinight na dapat meron sa aims natin according to the 1987 Constitution, it's kind of broad, di ba? Vague. Hindi mo alam kung paano mo yun maa-attain. Now, yung mga bagay na yun dapat maa-attain mo through goals. So, more specific ang goals. Okay? Pero, pinaka-specific ang objectives. Why? Short-term lang po ang objectives. This can be attained in 1 lesson, 2 lesson, okay? Must be clearly specified to understand and agree on. Objectives must be appropriate and arranged logically. Kapag kayo nagsusulat ng lesson plan, dapat ang arrangement ng ano ninyo, ng objectives ninyo, progressively. What I'm trying to say is, along the lesson, na-attain siya unti-unti. Okay? Based on the sequence that you wrote. Okay? Require regular revision. So, constant pang revisions natin ng content natin, particular on constant pang revisions ng either content or approach natin. Again, still dependent on the subject. If the subject is perennial, great books like history and wala kang babaguhin doon. Yun lang din ituturo mo. Pero pwede mong ituro yun in a different approach. But for the case of sciences and mathematics, paano pag may panibagong formula, paano pag may panibagong element, you have to update yourself. You have to keep yourself updated. To describe behavior, kaya nga may table tayo na na sinusunod kung ano yung mga behaviors na dapat mati. At bawal po tayo magsulat ng objectives ng describe and identify. Dalawang behavior sa isang lesson, sa isang objective, bawal po yun. Kaya hindi natin encourage. Ihiwalay mo na lang yun. Stated analytically and specifically, developmental rather than terminal, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. This is SMART. Diba? Kapag gumagawa tayo ng lesson plan, dapat ito ay SMART. Consider the 3 objective domains. Ano yung 3 objective domains? Ulit, lagi yung tatandaan ito, cognitive, psychomotor, affective. Sir, kailangan po ba lahat ng 3 yan ay meron sa lesson objective namin? Not necessarily. But ideally, we want to have these 3 domains of objective in your lesson plan. Pero wag niyong ipilit kung hindi naman yun kaya nung inyong lesson. So it's either cognitive psychomotor, cognitive affective, or yung 3 yun. Sir, di ba pwedeng affective psychomotor? Hindi po pwede yon. Kasi nga, cognitive ang ino-offer mo eh. Cognitive yung ano natin eh, yung sinaserve natin sa ating mga students. It's the knowledge, it's the information that we are serving our students. Now, the role of psychomotor and affective domain is to amplify the content. You're getting my point, guys. Nakakasabay ho ba? Kindly type 1 po at the chat section kung nandito pa po. Yan. Okay. Now, we have time-tested principles of teaching and learning. The first one is effective learning begins with setting clear expectations and learning outcomes. Unang-una pa lang, sabihin na natin kung ano ina-expect sa subject, sa lesson na ito, pati na din yung expected learning outcomes nila. Learning is an active process. What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. And what I do, I understand. Also, according to Richard Feynman, di ba, if you want to master something, teach it. Learning is a discovery of personal meaning of ideas. Students are given the opportunity to connect what they learn with other concepts learned with real world experience and with their own lives. So learning is a cooperative and a collaborative process. We shy away from compartmentalizing and by thinking na tayo lang yung magaling sa room, tayo lang yung matalino sa room. Again, we want to leave those traditional views of education behind and see a progressive view of education. So again, we have cognitive domain. Of course, ang pinakilala natin dyan si Benjamin Bloom and his student Krathwohl. Affective domain, also Krathwohl. And psychomotor domain, we have Elizabeth Senson. But there are different proponents on that. No? Pero sila lang yung mas kilala natin. Okay, let's start with the cognitive domain. So the cognitive domain talks about lots and hots. Okay, so if you're developing a lesson plan related or lesson objective related to cognitive domain, no, hindi naman pwedeng lahat na lang ay HOTS, no. You know what? Underrated ang LOTS. Hindi niyo ma-analyze, hindi kayo makakapag-evaluate, makakapag-create kapag hindi if you don't remember and understand. So please, no, equally distribute the lesson writing along the entire subject. Baka mamaya lahat ng hinihingi mo create per lesson plan. Hindi pwede 'yon per lesson plan create ang gagawin ng bata. Kawawa naman yung bata, 'di ba? So you have to write it appropriately wherein matutulungan niyo silang madaanan from lots to hots. Okay? I think you are very familiar with this already. So the Bloom's taxonomy by Benjamin Bloom was created before. Dati mas mataas ang evaluation, pero this was revised by Benjamin Bloom together with his student Krathwohl in 2001 wherein naging creation or creating yung sa dulo, the knowledge creation ay hindi na evaluation. Questions? Wala naman. Let's proceed to the affective domain. So we have receiving, responding, valuing, organization, and characterization of the affective domain. This is according to David Krathwohl. So receiving and attending, uh, this is when you are willing to you're willing to listen and you are already aware of the situation, di ba? And ngayon, mamimili ka na lang kung magre-respond ka doon o hindi. Example, if you're listening, example, nasa affective discussion and then you're starting to appreciate it, you start to nod, no, you start to listen. When you start to nod and agree with your teacher, that's responding. Nakikipag-participate ka na, okay? Pwedeng mag-recite ka na, no? Example, nagdi-discuss about tamang pagtapon ng basura. So nakikinig ka lang, that's receiving and attending. Responding, you agree. Example, tumatango ka lang. Valuing is you already start to embody that proper waste disposal. Now, organizing and characterizing is when you, even outside the class, ginagawa mo pa rin yung tamang pagtapon ng basura. So, you already give importance on the lesson that is given to you about environment. Okay? So, internal belief na siya. As mentioned in characterizing, di ba? Internal belief na siya can articulate, ano na siya, it's your personal view already of the environment. Okay, that drives you to throw the trash properly. So from receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing. This one is according to Simpson naman. So we have perception, set, guided response mechanism, complex overt response, and adaptation, and origination. Example, dance, sa sayaw. Tinuturuan ka lang, that's perception. Also set yon. Guided response and mechanism, kaya mo nang sumayaw nang may sinusundan ka. Now, complex and adaptation, you already start to mix different moves. Now, origination, this is the time when you already start to choreograph. You getting my point? Parang sa psychomotor lang din ng TLE, halimbawa, paggawa ng upuan, una may ginagaya ka lang na pattern. Sunod, nagdagdag ka ng konting design ng pattern mo, ng upuan, hanggang sa you already start to create your own design of chair. You getting my point? Nakakasabay po ba? Kindly type 0
Yes,
po.
sir.
Thank you very much for answering. Now, that's the aims, goals, and objectives. Now, what's the difference of the three? No, aims is longer time frame, mas vague ito, mas broad. It cannot be attained in just one lesson. Goals, on the other hand, are more specific than aims. Kung ang aims ay dapat na-attain yan few years after the full implementation of the program, halimbawa kayo, gumraduate kayo ngayong taong to, na-attain na ba immediately ang aims para sa education program ng CMU? Not yet. Not yet. Kasi hintayin pa natin yung boards. Diba? And apart from that, your performance, your placements, so saan kayo pupunta after the academic life. Next, goals. Goals naman is somehow shorter than aims, no? But still long kasi it covers an entire academic year or it covers an entire subject. And then the third one is, of course, objective. Objective is attained per lesson or per day. Kasi pwedeng sa isang lesson, 2 days yan, 2 days matapos depending on the heaviness of the content. So that's the difference of aims, goals, and objectives. Okay, now let's go to content and subject matter. Now, content and subject matter. The first one, di ba, ang first component of curriculum is what? Aims, goal, and objectives. The second one is content and subject matter. The content and subject matter, the knowledge that we have in school are knowledge from the society. Kaya nga society knowledge to school knowledge. So the knowledge, information formally organized, content, knowledge selected for educational process, and another knowledge, school content sufficient for use. So in a society, no, may knowledge na obtain. Itong knowledge na obtain na to, i-organize ito, ipapack ito in order to become a subject or a course for you, for the educational process, and then papasok ito sa academe. Pagpasok ito sa school or the academe, no, it will then be used by the schools. So, yung mga subjects na meron tayo ngayon sa mga schools natin, hindi lang ito putok sa buho. Ito po ay nanggaling sa nanggaling sa experiences ng society. Okay, nanggaling ito sa experiences ng society, sa view, sa kasaysayan, and in a future perspective. Okay, now, I would also like to stress that content and subject matter is the meat of the curriculum plan. What I'm trying to say is, ito yung laman ng lesson mo. Pag uwi ng bata, sisiguraduhin ninyo na ang iuuwi ng bata ay yung content ninyo at hindi yung kwento ng buhay nyo bilang mga guro. Naintindihan po ba? The meat, okay? Content and subject matter is the meat of the curriculum plan. Now, there are different ways of selection of content. You should know how to select your content. Number 1 is validity. Dapat ang content na ituturo mo ay tama at totoo. It should be authentic, it should be validated, it should be true. Second one is significant and relevant. Sabihin natin totoo yung sinasabi mo, sabihin natin authentic ito, but is it still relevant today? Take note that there are knowledge that are perennial, but there are also knowledge that can be obsolete if no longer needed. So, does it still give values on does it still give values? I mean, may value pa ba yung knowledge na ituturo natin, no? Kung yung knowledge na yun is already pre-existing knowledge or already known na yun, bakit isasama mo pa siya sa curriculum? The balance of depth and breadth of the content, yung coverage natin, pipiliin nyo lang po kung gaano kalalim at gaano kahaba yung discussion ninyo. Especially if nasa general education pa. Pwedeng habaan ang breadth at laliman ang depth kung ito ay nasa specialization subject na, kung ito ay nasa college na. No? Learnability is adjustable to learner's ability. Ibig sabihin, ito ay kayang aralin ng bata based on what? On the psychology of learners. Baka mamaya yung content mo, appropriate, ang ganda-ganda, pero yung placement mo, nilagay mo naman sa grade 5. Dapat ito ay kayang ma-attain ng bata cognitively based on their developmental state. Are you getting my point? Next is appropriateness, parallel with learners' needs and interests. So, the learning content should be appropriate with that of your lesson and with that of the needs and interests of your student. Appropriateness is always the key. Kasi sabihin natin sa mathematics, di ba, tapos pinasayaw kayo, pinasayaw, di ba? I don't think it is very appropriate because mathematics is heavily cognitive subject. And there's another subject for dancing. Right? Utility is very important because this talks about saan magagamit yung ituturo mo na content. Dito papasok yung meaningful. Saan ko yan magagamit, sir? Okay? So it's either magamit mo yan para sa board exam, preparation for the board exam, magamit mo para sa real life situations, magamit mo sa work, magamit mo sa research, no? Madaming pwedeng paggamitan. Dapat i-determine mo yun as a teacher kung saan nila pwedeng gamitin yung knowledge na meron ka or knowledge na tinuturo mo. Okay? Next is the learning experience. The learning experience is the heart of the curriculum. It gives what? Kung tatandaan natin sa levels of curriculum, the experiential level gives meaningful learning. Ito yung nagbibigay ng dahilan kung bakit dapat nilang alalahanin yung tinuro mo. It is the means towards attending goals and objectives of the curriculum, alignment of objectives, content, and learning experience. Appropriate dapat ang learning experience ng bata to that of your learning content and objectives. Kasi no matter how beautiful your objective is, ang ganda-ganda na pagkakasulat mo, ang ganda-ganda ng content mo, kayang aralin ng bata, kaya niyang maintindihan, pero yung experience na binigay mo sa bata, hindi niya naman nakita yung relationship ng objectives at content mo, baliwala din. Pwede mangyari yung learning. Pwede yon. Pero hindi pwede magkaroon ng meaningful learning. Again, it's the heart of the curriculum plan. Pag tinanong kayo what is the meat of the curriculum, that's the subject matter and content and subject matter. What's the heart of the curriculum? It's the learning experience. It gives meaning on the content. There are also different ways of selection of learning experiences. First one, again, is appropriateness. Should be appropriate and suitable to what? Content, activities, and levels of development of learners. So, example, ang activity mo is computation, no? Pero yung hirap naman ng computation mo, apakahirap naman, hindi appropriate sa level of development ng bata, baliwala din. Okay? Kagaya ng sabi ko kanina, mathematics, babalikan mo pa rin yung prinsipyo of philosophy behind the subject matter. Mathematics is idealism. It's heavily rooted on cognition. Therefore, you should stress on cognitive domain, 'di ba? Cognitive domain, and use only psychomotor and affective domain to amplify the importance, to magnify the importance of the content. Next, variety. Now, variety should include minds on, hands-on, and authentic learning experience or hearts-on. Okay. But take note, although nauuna pa rin po ang appropriateness rather than variety. So, pwede kang magpa-iba-ibang activity pero dapat yung iba-ibang activity na yon appropriate pa rin sa learning content. Next is optimal value should encourage learners to continue learning on their own. Kapag kayo nagbibigay ng assignment, dapat ang assignment na binibigay ninyo is deepening of the content or introduction to the new topic, hindi yung introduction, hindi yung deepening of the next topic. Kasi nadi-defeat yung purpose ng learnability nun. And then lastly is feasibility in terms of human, physical, and financial resources. So feasibility meaning it could be done by everyone in the class. Kaya nga 'di ba, bago mag-thesis, nagtatanong ang teacher sino dito ang mga may laptop. Paghihiwa-hiwalayin yung mga may laptop tapos i-regroup doon sa mga walang laptop. O kaya naman, sabi doon sa curriculum guide, kailangan gumawa ang bata ng reflection galing sa news. Ngayon, ang activity mo, the students will watch television to create a news report, no? To have a to create a summary or reflect on the news report. Now, sinabi mo television. Paano kung nagtuturo ka sa provinces na walang signal, na hindi lahat may television? Diba? So, anong pwede mong gawin as a teacher? As a teacher, you can work with, pwede ka magpagawa ng ibang learning experience na pwede pa rin nilang ma-attain yung hinihinging competency. Ano yung pwede niyang gawin? Pwedeng, madami namang iba-ibang sources of news like radio or even dyaryo, di ba? Okay, so that's the feasibility. Meaning, ang activity ay dapat kayang gawin ng lahat. Are you getting my point, guys? Sabay po. Okay, I hope sabay. Okay, now I'd like to stress only on this one. This is Edgar Dale. Are you familiar with cone of experience with this diagram? Nakikita po ba? Can you see po? Okay. I hope familiar kayo dito . Sana familiar po kayo dito. Okay. So Edgar Dale talks about using of knowledge actually heightens heightens the impression of the content, no. Repetition deepens impression, pero nagva-vary yan depending on the senses that you're going to use. If you're just going to read it 10%, hear 20, see 30, see and hear 50, say and write that's 70%, but if you do it, diba, that's 90%. Kaya nga sabi ni Richard Feynman, if you want to master something, teach it. Okay? So, pasok tayo sa pinaka-last na. The last po is selecting educational environments. So, the learning environment affects the curriculum, affects the educational process. According to Brian Castaldi, these are the important parameters on selecting educational environment. We have adequacy, should be adequate, sustainability, efficiency, and economy. According to Gerard Lang, volume, ibig sabihin yung lakas ng boses ng teacher. Dapat rinig hanggang likod. Sana naririnig nyo din ako ngayon ng malinaw, no? Kapag face-to-face classes, kapag large classes, dapat dinig sa likod. Kaya nga ang mga speakers ninyo, dinig po ba ako sa likod? Nagmo-modulate pa yan in order to make sure that you guys can hear. Illumination, the lighting also plays a vital role. ang lighting, no? Kapag dim light, aantukin yung bata. Kapag sobrang liwanag naman, masisilaw yung bata, hindi din makaka-concentrate sa discussion. Temperature, according to studies, dapat ang isang classroom is 2 degrees lower, 1 to 2 degrees lower than the average room temperature because your brain works at a cooler temp. So mas mas active yung ano mo, brains mo kapag gabi. Kaya papansinin ninyo, kapag ikaw lang mag-isa nagbabasa or nag-aaral, mas gugustuhin mo magbasa ng madaling araw or gabing-gabi because that's the time that the temperature is low. Sir, ito ibig sabihin dapat ang ang classes ay sa gabi? Not necessarily, hindi naman yun. Communication is very important. Madami pong estudyante na hindi nakakapasa dahil sa miscommunication. And of course, materials. Really, materials are big factor din. Again, materials are not that important compared to the teacher. Dapat ang teacher pa rin, no, ang may handle kahit saan ka pa iba to bilang guro. Kahit sa ilalim ng hagdanan ka pa magturo, ilalim ng puno, no. If the teacher masters his or her content, kaya niyang magturo. But materials plays a vital role because these learning materials can improve, no, the acquisition of knowledge. Okay? So I would also like to add here safety. In other textbooks, no, may makikita kayong safety. Safety is very important because if a student feels safe inside the school, mas makakapag-concentrate siya sa pag-aaral. Kaya we are very lucky and blessed, no? We are not in a war zone. Imagine doon sa mga schools na nasa war zones na nagpuputukan sa labas kaya hindi ka makapag-concentrate. So yun, I'll just add that maybe but that's not mine. The other references also shows that kasama. So we're done with the number 3. Let's go to the determinants, dimensions, and elements of curriculum. But before we do that, I'd like to call for another 3-minute eye break muna before we resume. It's already 9:03. 9:04, sorry. Let's resume siguro by 9:10. Medyo masakit sila naman. Okay? 9:10 po tayo. Is that clear, guys?
Yes po, sir.
Okay.